We are talking with Edward Cabral. He's an artist at ArtPrize this year as a porcelain sculpture called Bent Sub Sandwich at the City Water Building by Richard App Gallery. How are you doing, Edward?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So I want to know here at the start, the Bent Sub Sandwich, what is it and why?
Well, it's a porcelain hand-built sculpture that's then fired and painted with acrylic paint and glazes to make it look like a real sandwich, essentially. And it's bent right in the center at a 45-degree angle, so it sort of like snakes around the edge of the pedestal. And the reasoning why is actually sort of a longer story. The short of it is I had a solo show last year in New York where I made about a dozen chocolate cake and fondant Subway footlong sort of sandwiches. And they went around corners, they went through walls and things like that. And so I had some interest from collectors, and so I took what was a cake and then made it into a porcelain sculpture. And sort of this is what remains. This is what I had for ArtPrize this year.
Have you been able to spend time at ArtPrize by your piece, or have you seen or heard how people are reacting to it?
I hear lots of things about the piece, actually. I was in Michigan for the opening, and that was really enjoyable because people's first response is just humor. They laugh, or they sort of make an excellent, sort of make some sort of sound, and that's what I love to do. It's one thing for me to be an artist and to deal with larger concepts of Americanism and materiality and things like that, but I also don't want to make work that's you have to go to art school to understand. I think it can stand on both grounds, and if someone isn't looking at pieces in the introspective, intellectual way, but simply looking at them as objects, I wanted to present them something that was also very well made and kind of funny. A Subway sandwich is just such a silly, casual thing, and so then to see someone like me who spent probably about 16 hours carving and sculpting and painting this thing, it kind of just, there's a humor to that, and I really enjoy that. I'm not taking myself so seriously either, sort of thing.
That's good to see at ArtPrize sometimes, because it comes from all over. There's the absurd, there's the very serious, and it's nice to kind of bring it all together.
I went to art school in Chicago, and it very much had like a gallery museum focus, which is very important because it gives you an understanding of what your history is and what the narrative is. But at the same time, lots of people don't have that perspective, and they sort of go and interact with museums and have a disconnect. And I don't think it's necessarily on them that they're not understanding it. I think it's the fault of the institution that they're not explaining it well enough. And so when I can do things that could speak to these higher realms, I want to be sure to include people who don't think that critically about art objects, who simply want to look at something and enjoy the technique or the craft or see the maker in it. And I like working in that context because art doesn't have to be highbrow or lowbrow. It can be both. So
this kind of came out of a show that you had in New York. Well, how do you end up at ArtPrize?
As I said before, I'm based out of Chicago. I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And so sort of keeping my ear to the ground in the Midwest, you hear of ArtPrize, obviously. And so it had been on the radar for a couple of years, but I had never had a piece in my studio at the time or nothing that I thought would be good enough, essentially, to compete. And so as I finished this piece last December, I believe, it was sort of around the time that ArtPrize open calls happened, and I thought, well, I might as well give it a shot because I'm still an emerging artist, but I feel like this is a piece that's strong and that people respond really well to, and so it's like, why not? And it's right in my backyard. I mean, Grand Rapids is only 3 hours away, something.
Yep.
And it was really enjoyable to see the city, too. I hadn't been before, but ArtPrize really is quite the event.
Thanks for taking the time, and best of luck at ArtPrize.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.